Hi everyone, welcome back to XRaised, your ultimate platform for transforming insights into meaningful actions. Here we spotlight the trailblazers and innovators redefining their industries. Join us as we dive into the latest trends and breakthroughs that are reshaping sectors worldwide, helping you stay informed and equipped to lead in today's fast-evolving business environment. I'm your host Lia, and today we're thrilled to introduce a true visionary in sustainable technology solutions. As the lead innovator behind his company, he is at the forefront of developing advanced environmental and safety technologies that reshape how businesses promote sustainability. He's been pioneering transformative approaches in material science with groundbreaking advancements in air filtration, virus trapping materials, and eco-friendly PPE that are setting new standards across Europe. Let's welcome the founder and director of Midas Green Innovations, Professor Andrew Barrow. Hi, Andrew. How are you today?
Good, thank you. And yourself?
I'm great. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to talk with you and hear more about your consulting and technology services. So let's start from the very beginning. What inspired you to create such an environmentally friendly service? And were there any specific problems or challenges in your industry that you were aiming to address?
The answer to both of those is, well, the second one is definitely yes. Where
Mm.
this came from was, as we know, the UK has mandated targets for net zero, and we've got to achieve those targets irrespective of the scale of the company, what their output is. One of the problems, though, is if you look at all these net zero targets and how it's been, people are looking at it, it's being solved as a big problem with big solutions. And the issue with that is it doesn't meet everybody's needs. I was the principal investigator and starter of a project called the RICE project, which stood for Reducing Industrial Carbon Emissions, which was funded by the Welsh government, which was the very first pilot system to take modest scale TRL, jump it straight to 8 or 9, embed it into an industrial environment, and demonstrate that new technology for carbon utilization, carbon capture, or alternative energies such as green hydrogen could be deployed. One of the things we noticed was that it was very difficult to get a single technology to be profitable. The other thing, of course, there was the recent announcement by the government that they were going to spend 2.2 billion of our money, not its money, on carbon sequestration in the Northeast and Northwest. One of the issues behind that is someone's still going to pay for it. If we think about carbon capture, utilization, and sequestration, CCUS, there's always a bill. Someone's paying for it. Is it the government paying for it? Is it the consumer paying for it? Is it the industry paying for it? And at the end of the day, irrespective of who actually puts the cash in, it's going to be us, the consumer, the general public, who will end up paying for it. And to me, that was a problem. That really what it should be is CCUS, or carbon capture, utilization, sequestration, in themselves should make money. They should be economically viable without government subsidy, without our intervention as a consumer, and without industry having to sacrifice its lead. Because one of the big arguments we always hear is, oh, it's too expensive for a company to implement, it won't be able to compete on the global market. So what I did when setting up Midas was to take multiple companies, multiple technologies, incorporate them into a system that allows you to capture the maximum amount of carbon, CO2 emissions from industry, whether they're biogenic emissions from things like anaerobic digestion plants, from heavy industry, take them and capture them and convert them to either probably useful products or sequestered material at a profit. In other words, it's the production of the products that create the value chain. And that's really where Midas is unique in bringing together all these different solutions into a system approach that helps you bring everything into one location with some products which allow you to maximize productivity and other technologies which maximize profit.
Mm. Yeah, and it's so wonderful that you're using your extensive knowledge and experience in chemistry to support a greener future. Now, many startups face obstacles when bringing their services to market. So, could you perhaps describe some of the challenges your company encountered and how you overcame them?
Well, the one that everyone talks about is money, right? And so we're approaching this in a slightly different manner than others. One truism is that it's easier to raise 100 million than it is to raise a million. And part of that is because you're providing a much bigger ecosystem as the part of the project. So we're working on a number of different approaches, which are somewhat different from the traditional startup SME where you're going through different rounds. We're funding large scale projects at the moment. So money is always the issue. Coordination between multiple entities is the other one that's always difficult because you have to persuade each entity that's part of the consortium, part of the partnership. They're each going to benefit. Now, they may not benefit equally, and their input technology may not be equal. But the point being is, as a symbiotic relationship between multiple technologies, they can themselves benefit, whereas trying to go alone as a single entity is very difficult. So managing the expectations of the partners is one major problem. And also as part of that is getting buy-in. So our eventual customers are the subjects of the projects, if you like. They're the emitters. They're the industries that have either large scale emission or waste that we can use, consume to convert to a useful product. And getting their buy-in involves being able to demonstrate at TRL 9, 8, 9, or on an industrial site each of the technologies. They may not be put together into a system, but each one independently has been demonstrated as a commercial entity or on a commercial scale. So I think those are the three challenges, which are probably the same as most SMEs, having started multiple companies. The challenges never really change. It's the variation of which one becomes the most important in any small company or startup.
Thank you so much for explaining that so clearly to us. And as you know, collaboration and partnerships can be vital for startups. So, have you by any chance collaborated with other companies or organizations to enhance your service or expand your reach?
The whole point of Midas is it actually ends up being a lead or a focal point for collaborations. So under the Midas umbrella comes multiple companies doing different technologies, all of which, if you like, become a chain in a link. You could think of it as a series of arrows where each one connects to something else. So if you like, those companies include a company called C0 that has a unique technology for sequestering CO2 through a mineralization process that makes a profitable product. It doesn't go into the environment. It doesn't go as a waste material. It actually takes a waste material and converts it into a valuable commodity material. Underneath that, we have a company called Algae Products International that takes CO2 emissions and converts them into high value chemicals. So everything from protein for animal feed or for fertilizer, but more importantly, things like omega-3 lipids, which are used in pharmaceuticals and cosmetics, to dye molecules, the blue food dye that people are now trying to replace the synthetic one that's in M&Ms at the moment with a more natural approach. So these have very high value. Incorporating also into that is green hydrogen, a company called Kronos Energy Solutions, and a system company that looks at how to take waste materials and create value as part of that chain is Della Lloyd and Sons. So those are, if you like, four of the key components, but we have other ancillary companies that we're working with to deliver specific components in taking CO2 emission, capturing it, sequestering it, also utilizing it such that you maximize the output in terms of the valuation, if you like, of the captured carbon, both in terms of credits, and we're working with credit suppliers as well as CO2 suppliers, and we're working with a couple of emitters globally of different emissions, some which are biogenic, anaerobic digestion and distilleries, and some which are coal power stations, and everything in between.
That's wonderful to hear, and it must be so exciting to work within such a dynamic environment. So, could you perhaps elaborate on the scalability and adaptability of your service to accommodate potential growth and changing market demands?
So, first of all, for growth, everything that we've developed, every system is modular. So, we're looking at a project here in South Wales near Port Talbot, which will be doing CCUS on about 5 to 10,000 tons of carbon CO2 a year. And that has a modular, it's got 3 different technologies at certain scales. The system as a whole, though, we're in final stages of negotiating a contract for a project in Asia, which will be doing 300,000 tons of CO2 a year, which will be essentially one of the biggest sequestration utilization projects anywhere. And the point being is because all the systems are modular, you can adapt them for any emitter, any waste supplier. So, for example, in Asia, it's going to be a coal power station. We're going to be taking their fly ash, the waste that comes from burning coal, taking that, using that to capture CO2, taking one of the outputs from that to generate green hydrogen. That allows you to feed the oxygen that you generate at the same time back into the coal power station. There are other wastes that are being used, and we're generating material for the local agricultural industry. So each location takes, it's a bit like a building blocks, a series of Lego blocks. You want to build a skyscraper, use a certain number of these blocks and a certain number of these blocks. You want to build a car, you use different blocks. We've got, if you like, the building blocks for capturing, utilization, sequestration of carbon, all of which have been done at industrial scale. We have pilot plants for each one individually. In the case of hydrogen, we were the first green hydrogen system on a cement plant in the UK and have been ran that for 4 years. In the case of the algae-based system, we're currently at a nickel refinery and operating commercially. In the case of the mineralization, that's actually as a demonstration unit. It's still about 5,000 tons a year demonstration. So all of these units, when we talk about a pilot, we're not talking about a small, just outside the laboratory scale. Our pilots are on industrial sites of a commercial scale.
That's amazing. Now, we've spoken a lot about what you've accomplished. So, for our final question, I'd actually like to look ahead. So, what are your company's plans for the future? Can you share any exciting developments or upcoming projects with us?
Well, I think I mentioned briefly, we've got hopefully in Q1 of this next year, we will sign the final contract for this 300,000 ton a year project in the Far East. At the same time, we're working with a number of other different entities. One is in the Middle East, which will be a series of projects. In other words, we will manage multiple projects, bringing for each one different technologies together. And as I say, finally, we're working on a smaller project here in the UK, which will kind of be the fastest to implement. We're already start implementing some of it. The idea is once we've got that as a finished project, it becomes I'll call it the IKEA, if you like. You're used to the idea of going to IKEA and being able to see a bedroom or a dining room or a lounge and sitting on the chair and bouncing up and down on the bed and deciding whether you like it. Our idea is we're implementing the first project, although it be small in scale compared to the rest that we're in the process of doing. But the idea is that it means other entities can come and look at it, show that the process, the integration of multiple technologies works, and that then facilitates additional projects. But I think our biggest announcement is going to be hopefully early Q1, where we announce the final funding and signing of this project in Asia.
That sounds incredibly exciting. We can't wait to hear more about it. So, if you're looking to elevate the sustainability and efficiency of your operation through advanced, eco-friendly technology, Midas Green Innovations is a company worth exploring. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today and providing us with such an in-depth insight into your business. It's been incredibly interesting, and I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you.
And finally, thank you to our audience for tuning in to another episode of XRaised, your go-to source for all things business, innovation, and strategy.